screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempt the mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp proceed is mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Soul, where tonight it is the winning report. We'll look at all of the news, and we will see how we're always winning, always have been, always will be, because we are soul. Soul is undefeatable. And while we're here in these material bodies, there's many agendas we want to see through as well as we can. There's many ways we want to hone our abilities to discern. And there's many ways that we want to invite ourselves back to the understanding of our soul, because it is primary, because it is tops, because it is exactly how we win. So we'll get right into it. But before then, please do go to roguesoul.org. My site is where everything I do resides. You can link, of course, to getting a one-on-one session with me, tarot, spiritual healing and teaching, and otherwise that's all there for you. You can get my books, both the source channeled inspirational books as well as the fictional trilogy Sine Curve of Aeons, and you can explore all the links to all the various places where Rogue Soul is. Every podcast platform hosts it, every video, even including YouTube now. Back on YouTube, the old channel, after 4 years of being dead, was resurrected. And so it's there with a huge gap in between, but new content is there too. So if you're a YouTuber, you can find me there again at the old Rogue Ways channel. And yeah, that's all there at roguesoul.org. Also go to rogueways.substack.com. If you're not already subscribed, that's where I do my writing. I was an author before I was anything else. I was a teacher next, and then I was this. And so you can read about philosophy, about religion, about history, about interesting aspects of our society and culture. You can do all that for free while also being updated as to events like the upcoming bright blessings for the equinox. This is going to be on the 20th. Things like that will be announced to you. You will know when blessings are happening, when other events are happening. You'll also get access to all that writing, all those good, true, and beautiful articles that uplift your soul, heart, mind, and body. And if you are at the paid level, you will get channeled messages as they come through from the spiritual ancestors. Those are always exceptional to read. Once you subscribe at the paying level, you also get access to the entire archives of channeled messages. So go subscribe. It's also a great way to support what I do, support the show, and I love having you there. So thank you for supporting me at rogueways.substack.com. And otherwise, here we go. On to the things. Very interestingly, we've got this update now on that school in Iran who everyone was blaming each other, who actually destroyed the school and killed the children. And it turns out the US military did an investigation into itself, which I mocked last week on the Winning Report, because anytime you do a investigation into yourself, for the most part, usually you go, oh no, I'm perfect, I'm great, nothing wrong here, right? Both as an individual and as an organization, people tend to have that blind spot. But they determined they were at fault. The US said, yeah, it was us. We did bomb that school. I'm like more shocked that they are admitting it than anything else. It gives me a sense of pride. And I'm always proud of anyone who can admit wrongdoing, because it's one of the greatest failures of the human race that we try so hard to pretend like we're perfect. We try so hard to avoid admitting wrongdoing, asking a question, saying we were wrong, right? They say, yeah, we did it. It was a targeting mistake. They even explain why. They say the preliminary investigation disclosed that U.S. CENTCOM officers created the strike coordinates using outdated data supplied by the Defense Intelligence Agency. The school building had previously been a part of an adjacent Iranian military base. It's not even that far-fetched. When I was first teaching at the public school level, I taught in a school that was literally still on a military base. It was a public school. It had nothing to do with the military, but because they're both government, schools are government, military is government, when the high school was being renovated, they were hosting half of the school on the military base. So they were renovating half of the high school and a couple grades were going to that military base. And then the other half of the high school was being renovated and those grades were going to the military base. So I taught on a military base. In fact, I think it was my fourth period class right after lunch was right during takeoffs and touchdowns and practice of the jets, military jets. It was the U.S. Naval Base on Whidbey Island. And so that class, by the end of the quarter semester, was deeply far behind the rest of the classes teaching the exact same content because it was so loud for like 20 minutes of every day of that period that nobody could hear anything. So it was ridiculous, actually, that we had to teach there. But yeah, those kids missed out on some learning because of it. So anyway, all of that to say, it's not that weird to have a school on or near a military base. It's super deeply sad that this happened. So very interesting. The U.S. military investigated itself, found its own wrongdoing, admitted it, and explained what happened without trying to say, you know, that's why we're excused, just saying, yeah, it's unfortunate and sad. So definitely why war is a sad experience, no matter how or when it happens, whether it's right or wrong. So that was an interesting news today. We also have footage showing the moment that the Iranian women's national soccer team in Australia signed the word help. And interesting, we were talking about them also last week on the Winning Report because they refused to sing the Iranian national anthem, right? Like many Iranians, they are hopeful that the US's aggression will result in their freedom. And so they joined in the sort of efforts against their own country by refusing to sing the national anthem. They then left, they went to Australia, or maybe it was even in Australia when they did that. I'm not actually sure, but they were, kind of about to leave soon, and they signed out the window to some people who were excited and cheering and waving them off. They signed the word help. And so they got it, actually. 5 of the women's soccer team escaped. We have video also of the moment that their handlers realized they were gone and frantically began looking for them. So the rest of the women on the team, I don't know how many that is, maybe another 10 or so, I'm not sure, they're headed back to Iran. Because they failed to stand up and sing that anthem, they face potentially being murdered. And so just like so many Iranian citizens who've been murdered for, breaking Sharia law or otherwise opposing the theocratic government, right? The Islamic government. And so pretty sad to see, very happy that some of them got away, very bittersweet because not all of them got away. And then we'll see what happens to them when they return. There's a sort of element of the world is watching, right? If you're trying to pretend like you deserve to not be bombed and, destroyed, maybe you'll prove that to the world by not harming these women. And maybe because they're so public facing and they're on this, international women's soccer team, maybe they will be spared. And that's what we can hope and pray for. Otherwise, they're headed back to some extreme danger. So that's what's going on with them. All right. We also have now, it's not just Iran, right? We also have always China. And as I've said before, oh, sorry, something's going on. Hopefully you can still hear me. As I've said before, China is actually the reason we're in Iran. They're also why we went to Venezuela. They're also why we captured Maduro. It has nothing actually to do with Venezuela or Iran, really. It does, but my God, what's happening with my computer? Okay, yeah, everything's still good. It does, but really it's China. China is the actual enemy to which our military, if they're intelligent, are most aware of. So the Select Committee on China, which is a U.S. government organization, said Chairman Representative Moulinier, I don't know if that's how you say his name, dude, sent a letter to the NSF calling for an immediate investigation into the University of Washington and Texas A&M University. Despite receiving millions from NSF's secure program to safeguard U.S. research, faculty at these universities collaborated with Chinese military-linked entities. Ensuring the security of taxpayer-funded research is a national priority. And of course, they're right. So they're going to obviously investigate this. This is just one of many, many, many examples I can cite to you and have cited to you over the years of doing Winning Report of China invading our country and taking advantage of people. We've got people like Swalwell and other politicians who had known Chinese spies as their lovers or wives, And then we've got things like this, where the universities are collaborating with the Chinese military. We've got Chinese hackers that are in most, if not all, of our networks. We've got invasion on every level. We've got those biolabs that we've found over the years. We've got just another one not that long ago that we find in storage facilities, U-Hauls, and otherwise. China is definitely working to undermine the US in every potential way. And it is their stated military objective. So, but when people are like, I don't know, China doesn't seem that bad. Well, they think they're that bad. And that's what they're trying to do, is destroy the United States. So it doesn't matter if you like China or don't, or like their government or whatever. That's not the question. The question is, like, do you understand what it would mean if China was successful in its goals? And if the US government weren't attempting to stop China from being successful in their goals, they would be successful in their goals, which is to destroy your country. And if you're not living in the United States and you're hearing this, but you're, potentially considering yourself of the West, you could say goodbye to your power and, privilege and freedom too. Because under the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, no one is free. And no one will be free if they manage to conquer or extend their reach beyond China. So there's that. Now we have the University of Washington, Texas A&M also infiltrated by China. The war is ongoing, right? It's fifth generational. It's nonlinear. It's happening in ways like these. It's not just boots on the ground. Here's the battle line. Let's bomb each other across it, right? It's been that way for many, many years. People are slowly starting to catch up to what World War III has been already about and is about ongoing. Israel is quietly planning for a potential base at the mouth of the Red Sea in Somaliland that would allow it to target Yemen's Houthis. It's been targeting Yemen's Houthis all the way across Saudi Arabia, all the way down to the edge of the peninsula, Yemen. So it's looking down in Africa, right? Underneath that peninsula in that Middle East area into Africa and Somaliland. And that's where Israel wants to put its base so that it can target Yemen Houthis, extremists, and terrorists. Whether you like that or not, that's what they're saying they're doing. EU has sanctioned 19 Iranian officials and entities to send a message that Iran's future cannot be built on repression. It's interesting, the European Union otherwise seems to serve China and Chinese communist goals. So for them to come out and, essentially openly be against Iranian terrorist theocratic regimes, that's interesting. So I'll take it. It's cool. We'll call it a win for now, even though I don't really believe that's their actual commitment. Dutch airline KLM has canceled all flights to Dubai until the 28th of March. That list would be longer, but I think they only fly to Dubai out of the Middle East. In the Middle Eastern region, that's their only location, I'm sure. So the Royal Dutch Airlines will not be flying to that region through the month, essentially. Potentially, obviously, that could go on. We're I don't know. I heard a general, the generals in general are very supportive of this war. The generals see the danger of the theocratic state and the terrorist state, the Islamic states. And so they understand the necessity of taking this out. And I'm sure they also understand the Chinese connection, and so that's important. And I heard a general, I'm sorry, I can't remember which one, was talking last night on a show I was listening to, and he was saying that he expects this war to be over within a week or two. And, again, you could say anything, anyone could say anything, we can guess, who knows, and lots of people are just having flashbacks to Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're like, oh my God, another endless war, and, they want this to be over. But look at Venezuela. People said the same thing. They're like, well, why are we starting wars? This is going to drag on forever. You can't. If people were making comparisons to Vietnam, they're like, you can't defeat people on their own home turf. And I kept saying, look, they're not trying to defeat the people. They're trying to replace their government openly and with the people's support. Right, it's a very different thing. And so very different thing. And so this is similar, right? So it really could be that short. So we'll see. Maybe these airlines can continue to fly there soon. Not that that's the priority, right? But that's perhaps possible. Ukraine is still going on as well. And Ukrainian military trainers will be sent to Germany to their army schools to teach lessons learned from fighting Russia, helping Germany to meet its target of being ready to defend against a Russian attack by 2029. Like, Russia might attack at any day, guys, but we'll be ready in 3 years. Like, okay, Germany, you do your best, guys. You do your little best there. Whatever. Such a weird feint. I don't believe you. Spain's prime minister has announced a tool to measure hate speech. Remember, Spain is specifically like, we will not support the West, we will not support the United States, we will not support the European Union or NATO or anyone who's supporting this war in Iran. We're against it. Spain is also the place where their king or queen or whatever monarch figurehead they've got has decided to just let all 10 million of their illegal immigrants have instant citizenship. They don't have to apply for it. They don't have to work for it. They don't even have to ask for it. They'll just be given it. You just are a citizen now if you're in Spain and you're illegal. The people of Spain are pissed about all of this. So what does the government do? They're announcing now a tool to measure hate speech on digital platforms. It'll allow the government to systematically track the presence, amplification, and impact of hate speech. Remember, hate speech is whatever you say it is. There's no real thing called hate speech. It's not a real thing. So if you just want to call something hate speech, you get to. So if you're a government entity and you're tracking hate speech, it has in many places in the West, in Europe, become any criticism of any government official is considered hate speech. It is super Orwellian. Deeply Orwellian and meant to suppress thought and speech. So Spain, not going the right direction. Not a fan of Spain right now. Southeast Asian nations are telling citizens to work from home, encouraging carpooling or cycling, implementing 4-day work weeks, and promising increased spending on energy subsidies in an effort to cut oil use. This in the face of rising oil prices across the globe. Of course, there are some easing measures that are now being taken for that, but because of all of this conflict, oil is a hot commodity. The Middle East always has similar effects. Japan says, for example, it will release 15 days worth of private sector oil reserves and 1 month's worth of state oil reserves. So that's how they're helping their people get through the oil crisis. The International Energy Agency is going to release oil from their strategic reserves due to this war, with over 100 million barrels expected to be released in the first month. So happening all over. We'll see what the US does, if anything. Again, if it doesn't really last that long, it won't matter anyway. And so in more domestic news, we've got a car that broke through the White House barricade. It was a van. It crashed through the barricade near the White House. This was this morning, I believe, if you're listening to this as it airs, which is March 11th, 2026. Van plowed into the security barricade outside the White House. Secret Service was brought out. They're investigating. I don't know that we have any idea of what the intentions or situation were. I tell you what, I would not assume, actually, that it was terrorist related or politically related, only because you've probably seen too how many cars are crashing into buildings lately. Not the cars, obviously, the drivers in the cars crashing in buildings, but for a while, see, it was confusing because here, at least in our city, there was a bunch of intentional crashing into buildings in order to break down, the whole entire front of the building so you could get in and get what's ever in there. There were thefts. Pretty smart way. I had never heard of that. I was like, that is an intelligent way of thieving, not that I want you to do it, but I'm just saying. Just figured it out. It was great. Because then you can get right back in the car with all your stuff and drive away before anyone has a chance to get there. So no matter what type of store, right, not many can resist the force of a vehicle smashing through your front doors. So it was effective. Well, a lot of barricades have gone up now. You see a lot of these posts, these cement posts in front of a lot of different buildings now. So they're a little bit more protected. But then I kept hearing cars were smashing into places. But then I was looking into it. At first, I had assumed it was the same, the thieves. Nope, it's just people losing control, passing out, not knowing where they're at, not paying attention. Vax damaged, I'm sure. I'm sure of it, because just like all the rest of the chaos we've seen on the roads. So who knows, smashing through the White House gate? Might have been that. Might have been just like, oh, I'm not intelligent. I'm not present. I'm drunk. I'm vax damaged. Who knows? But maybe not. Maybe we'll find out it was terrorist related. We'll see. When we see Boeing, of course, always doing well in wartime. Boeing is getting a $298 million contract with Israel this time for 5,000 air-launched smart bombs. Those are essentially those what people are calling Dorito drones. Little flying triangles, and they're very small, and they carry a high payload, and they can basically get by most defenses and smash into whatever they want. So pretty intense there. That's Boeing, $298 million contract. Trump has announced in his effort to help the U.S. Curb its oil issues at the moment that America First Refining is opening for the first new U.S. oil refinery in 50 years. I didn't know that. 50 years. So Brownsville, Texas is getting a oil refinery. This is thanks, he says, to our partners in India and their largest privately held energy company, Reliance. So, I go back to the H-1B visa issues, and everyone was like, how is he, allowing this? Everybody knows the scam, and it's always Indians, and they're always coming here and stealing jobs from the US people who, would have had to get paid more. And why didn't he stop that? And now maybe this is part of why. I don't know. I know everyone wants to believe Trump has like no brains and couldn't plan that far ahead, but I don't agree. And seems like maybe that has something to do. You want India to be your friend and start an oil refinery, then you can't stop their people from coming here to work, right? So that makes sense to me. That seems to be maybe what's going on there. Oh yeah. So I want to actually stop this share. I want to show you something else. Let me pull that up if you're watching. If not, don't worry, I'll describe it to you. But I suggest you watch. Oh, come on. Where does it show? Okay, it didn't want to share, but here it is sharing. So this is a very recent study, February 24th, 2026. This is on the topic of the geomagnetic excursion, pole flip, pole shift, weakening magnetosphere, sun is intense, earth is weak, polar flip could happen, complete catastrophe. If you've watched me long enough, ad nauseum. And if you don't, there's your little rundown. So this study, February 24th, 2026, is called Reduced Geomagnetic Shielding During the Lachamps Excursion and Its Impact on Cosmic Ray-Induced Atmospheric Radiation. So remember, the reason scientists can get away, and AI too, can get away with telling you that there's nothing to worry about in a pole flip. Yes, the poles have been wandering faster and faster every day. And yes, it seems like we're headed towards a pole flip. We're right on time for it. And yes, it could happen. Like nothing physical will occur. It's just a magnetic pole reversal or shift, or they'll go back to where they were and everything's fine. There's no evidence. So they always can say this, there's no evidence. And what they mean is there are no peer-reviewed studies that haven't been expunged hundreds of years ago that we can point to say that there's a reason for you to worry. Well, this study now says, yeah, there's a reason for you to worry. So now, as soon as the AI is forced to accept this and the scientists are forced to accept this because it's a peer-reviewed journal article, a peer-reviewed study, they may have to admit there might be, they'll at least say there might be a potentially, a reason to worry, a physical effect of this. So atmospheric radiation is a physical effect, increased atmospheric radiation. So Lachamps' geomagnetic excursion was 41,000 years ago, period of significant weakening and incomplete reversal. So remember, sometimes the poles flip and sometimes they do this geomagnetic excursion. They just go back to where they were. And in the Lachamps excursion, if I'm saying that correctly, they wandered and then they went back to where they were. So they remained North and South Pole as we know them now. But in others, they flip all the way in and they seem to take turns. So every other pole, geomagnetic excursion, weakening of the magnetosphere, it flips, and every other it wanders and goes back to normal. So that means this one we're headed up to, they will flip, right? If it follows the pattern we can see throughout history, there will be a flip. And they say during even this, where it didn't flip, the cosmogenic isotope production, atmospheric ionization, and radiation all were incredibly high. That was not good. And life on Earth changed, and they're connected to, extinction events. And so this goes into all of that. What's very interesting, and what I actually wanted to show you, you can go read this and look into the math and look into the study itself, and it's very thorough, very well done. They also have this in a lot of images that are helpful, and one of them that we're coming up to is this one. And this one I've highlighted so you can see the yellow and the purple. And if you can tell, this is the traditional sort of, North America's up in that upper left corner. Australia is down in the lower right. We've got South America and Africa somewhat towards the center, all of that, right? So it's your standard projection map. And so you can see there's this very narrow band through the US where it's purple, which means that your effective dose of radiation is likely to be 0. Don't ask me. You got to go look at all the math and all that if you really want to know why and how. But all the people I know who research this for a living and have been following this say this map's accurate, right? And so if you're looking at where could I be to survive just the radiation part of this potential cataclysm, you have to be in a purple area. Most of them are over the ocean. So you're not going to be in a purple area, except this very narrow band that kind of goes from the Yucatan Peninsula up through what might be a part of Texas and New Mexico, part of Colorado, and then up maybe a little bit, I don't know, what would that be? Wisconsin, some of the eastern portion of Canada, and that's it. Greenland, oh, look at Greenland, untouched. Remember all our talks about Greenland? Remember that whole show I did and we talked about Greenland and the geomagnetic excursion and the polar reversal and the sun and all of that? That show, that most recent one out of the many, Greenland's untouched. It's the most purple landmass of all of them. Large parts of Siberia. Siberia is mostly untouched. Not all of Russia, just Siberia. The Middle East is untouched. Almost all of the Middle East is untouched, dude. Talk about the Holy Land and why everyone's obsessed with it. Maybe that's why, I don't know. Little bit of the west coast of Africa, a little bit of the southern tip of Africa. Very little of Polynesia. Almost none. None of Japan. None of Australia. All of Antarctica is in the yellow and green. This is pure death. There's no way to survive. If this map is accurate and the poles flip and that energy comes in, you're going to die in those. There's no way to survive that. If you were, someone said, basically, if you're in a yellow area and you're 50 feet under rock and you have 12 feet of gold, then you will survive. Imagine the radiation power that could pierce through 50 feet of stone and 12 feet of gold. That's the power they're saying may occur in a potential pole flip when the magnetosphere would be weakened down to 0%, at least momentarily, and all that solar radiation would be coming in, especially if it comes through the micronova or huge solar flare, which are both potentials. They're potentially what causes the pole to finally just flip outright. So this map is crazy and interesting again, because as I've said, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. It's not my job. I don't even care. I care not at all who or what survives where or when, because all of it is going to be perfect and doesn't matter at all to your soul. Your soul will be doing exactly what it needs to be no matter what happens. You can trust that. I'm not saying to be depressed or not care about life or not take care of your issues and your things, because nobody knows what will happen, right? But I'm just saying, like, there's no reason to get too attached to anything, really, right? You just keep living. But if you are trying to guess, Colorado is a great guess. I was led here for a reason. That entire Suspicious Observer, ranch is here for a reason. I didn't even know about that right until long after I moved here. I was told to move here when I was 18. As a strong knowing and message that came to me, so much that I planned to do so, knew for sure it was going to happen, then got so caught up in college and getting my master's degree and becoming a teacher, like I didn't even really think about it. And then all of a sudden life was like, bloop, everything will change and now you will live in Colorado. And I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to go here all along. How funny that I ended up here, right? How perfect. Really, it was just that I knew I would. And so my soul arranged for it to happen. So Just saying, if you were going to guess, that's what I'd guess. If I were a betting man. And this article seems to reinforce that. Some people are saying, oh, even in those purple areas, you're still going to die, because even if you survive the radiation, which isn't going to perfectly adhere to anyone's map that they made, you are also going to then deal with volcanoes, earthquakes, continents rising and falling, the oceans sloshing over everything. I still think Colorado's a good bet, but I bet the Andes Mountains are decent too. Wait, let's look at the map. No, the Andes Mountains are not at all. Again, who knows? I don't know exactly why it would ever be true that some areas would get blasted, not others. Because someone, asked in the comments, if you go to Suspicious Observer and his post on this, you can read some of the comments, and he responds to some people. And so there's some, information that's worth your time in there. Somebody said, wouldn't it only matter which side of the earth is facing the sun? And he said, nope. And the reason I can imagine why, right? Not being the person who studies this, is that the purpose of all of Earth's energy layers, atmospheric layers and otherwise, is to distribute energy. All of our weather is energy distribution. All of magma and earthquakes is energy distribution. And so there is some pattern that energy gets distributed. Even if the sun's hitting really hard at one point, it is being distributed throughout the system. So that's my short answer of why. The answer is no. It doesn't matter which side is facing the earth when it happens. Or sorry, which side of earth is facing the sun if and when this happens. So very, very cool. If you're into death and destruction, cataclysm, I'm just saying, not cool, but cool to see something like that, right? So anyways, let's get back to the rest of the news. That was just a very good article I wanted to make you aware of, that has come out in a peer-reviewed journal. Not often we get that in this geomagnetic excursion into sort of cataclysmic science, catastrophism, sort of area. We don't get science supporting it, really. They tried to suppress it so hard in 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, that it just disappeared. So not used to that. But yeah, great article if you want to check it over. All right, Trump says the U.S. has hit and completely destroyed 10 inactive mine-laying boats and or ships in the Middle East near the Strait of Hormuz. He had asked Iran not to be putting mines, these are water mines, ocean mines, sea mines, whatever you call them, throughout the Strait of Hormuz. Apparently they refused. He asked Israel to stop striking Iran's energy facilities. I don't know. It seems like they complied, but Iran continued to lay those mines. So they destroyed 10 mine-laying boats. So that was that. Mine-laying boats are gone. The mines are going to be cleared, I'm sure. Back here in the U.S., the FBI is seizing voting records from major battleground states and counties. In Arizona and other places that were battlegrounds in 2020, they've seized this. It's practically proven. Whether it's going to be legally then established that this steal happened is yet to be seen, but that is definitely what we're headed towards. More and more evidence is being seized to support that case. So pretty obvious to anyone who was paying attention, but now the FBI is on it. We'll see what happens. Weirder things have happened. We also have this now floating around the alternative sphere. This is King of the Jews, a novel. This is from February 17th, 2004, published by a Leslie Epstein, whose middle name is Jeffrey. So Leslie Jeffrey Epstein, spelled exactly like Jeffrey Epstein, King of the Jews. And in this 1979 classic, sorry, it was uploaded to Amazon in 2004. It was actually published first in 1979. So 1979 classic is a darkly humorous story of I.C. Trumpelman, a man whose fancy determines the fate of others. Chosen as the head of Judenrat, Trumpelman thrives on the power granted him and creates an authoritarian regime of his own within the ghetto. So it's in wartime Poland, it's in Nazi times, right? And it's Trumpelman, and he's creating, this authoritarian regime within the Nazi occupied area, and his name is Trumpelman. So it's Jeffrey Epstein talking about Trumpelman. So it's Leslie Epstein if you're looking for it, but middle name Jeffrey. So people are saying, see, everything's predicted and they know ahead of time. They've planned this for so long, da da da. I just want to point out the author's name really is Leslie Epstein. They published this in 1979. I think Jeffrey Epstein was still a child then. Could have been writing under a pen name and written this book, technically, I think, but like not that likely. And Trumpelman is not Trump, even though it's got Trump in it. There's a lot of names with Trump in it, and Trump is a very common root and a word and sound, and it's all over the place. So not that actually compelling to me. And again, it's not in any way in my mind. There's no evidence that this is them and they know ahead of time. And if so, why didn't they write the story of Jeffrey Epstein as the Israeli Mossad agent who had all of the dirt on everyone through child trafficking and molestation and didn't get any dirt on Trump? Why wouldn't they just write that story? Why would they try to hide it as like Trump's the dictator of a ghetto in war-torn, Poland? Like what, how would that even compare? It's not that weird. It's same with the snake eyes thing. Like that wasn't that weird. Like none of these are actually that weird when you look into them. They're cool, like kind of synchros and things that kind of seem to like mirror each other a little. But like, dude, you can get a book that was written that is exactly what happened to the Titanic way before it occurred. That's way crazier. It's not just kind of the same. It is literally exactly what happened to the T, to the last iota. There's another one I always wish I remembered the name. I knew it like 15 years ago when I was into all this, synchronicity and things that seem to tell the future. I was really into that. And there was a book, and it's not a conspiracy and it's not like a story anyone knows, but it was just a book that told a story of like a kid who got lost at sea and like his parents were here and this is what happened and it was how he survived and he eventually got back home. And there was a book about exactly that was written like decades before, and it was down again to the T. It was the names were the same. Exactly what happened. It was like they looked into the future, saw that occurring, and wrote it down and published it as a story. That was crazy. So this isn't even that cool. King of the Jews. Right? It's not even that great. This book, King of the Jews, is not even that great. It is definitely not an indication that they know anything ahead of time. I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying this, not compelling. Not compelling. And if you know me, I think you know exactly the answer that I give to those, which is that people are psychic and they don't know it. It's like so obvious at this point. I don't know how people are missing it. And that is so far from, simulation theory, right? And this type of simulation theory that's fake is the type that says someone's created this to control you and entrap you. The simulation theory that's correct is that this is all not really real and your soul is all that's real and you're here having this experience in, physical dimension, and it's not actually who or what you are. And that everything here is essentially created by your mind, which is your soul at the highest level. And that's the simulation, but it doesn't make it not real. It doesn't make it a trap. It doesn't make it not matter. And it doesn't at any level indicate that there's a powerful group of beings that controlled you and put you here, or know the future exactly, or any of that. You know the future as much as any soul does because you're psychic, because everyone is, even if you don't know it. So that's how we get books like this and synchronicities like that. And humans are pattern noticing machines. So you're going to notice the Leslie Jeffrey Epstein Trump book now, but in no way does it actually correlate to anything else. So anyways, fun thing, not very meaningful. But speaking of Epstein, they have begun the search of Zorro Ranch. Will they find buried bodies? Will they find, weird labs and human genome testing and, other weird stuff that he seemed to be into? Maybe. We'll see. I mean, it's been a while, so like I'm sure it's been scrubbed. I'm sure they've had time to move any bodies that might have been there, but we'll see. It's possible. I just don't care, dude. I care. I care, and if they find something, great. But I just have. Why would we pretend like we can find something so many years later after someone who is his friend has owned the ranch and had plenty of time to scrub it? If you wanted to care, you had to care a long time ago. So. Okay, Google's rolled out Gemini AI agents. to automate routine jobs across the Pentagon's 3 million strong workforce. Great job. So that's happening. We've got 2 Pennsylvania teenagers. This is so dumb. This is a CNN tweet about, let me first find the post about the guy who tried to do the bomb in the New York City, and I think it's way back. Oh God. Yep, here it is. Oh nope, that's the Oslo embassy explosion. Okay, so there was a terrorist bomber in Norway, the Oslo U.S. embassy, that managed to set off a bomb. So that happened. This is, of course, all in the name of terror and Islam. You know, pro-Iranian, theocratic Islamic regime. So targeting the U.S. embassy in Norway. Pictures have been released. I think they still haven't caught that guy. There was one in Canada where a Muslim shot at the U.S. embassy. So that happened. And then in New York City, there was a protest going on for immigrants, for specifically Muslim immigrants. And here it is. And this, in the midst of that, while people were like, we want all the immigrants here no matter what, one of them jumped over the protesters to throw a dirty bomb. Another guy I don't think it's a dirty bomb, but what is it called? It's all shrapnel, basically. So when it explodes, it doesn't just kill, it like maims and destroys, and like so much injury happens. And so it's called the Mother of Satan, this bomb. An explosive called the Mother of Satan, because it does so much harm. You imagine just millions of pieces of shrapnel all exploded out into a crowd, like everybody's going to get a piece, everybody's going to be wounded. And then if you cover all of that in poison or feces, you know, gross. So anyways, this guy in New York hurled an IED while they were literally protesting for him. He chose that moment to do this. So yeah, what else was in there? It was something gross. I don't know if it was feces or what, but it was definitely meant to cause the maximum amount of damage. Pretty gross. There was another one used in New York too, not just this one. So there's a couple. So anyways, that experience, CNN used this post. They said 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would be drastically changed as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zoran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far. Like, that's your headline. When an immigrant in the name of Islam for jihad tried to harm and maim as many people as he could, and it also says it was an anti-Muslim protest. No, there were people who were saying we need to get a hold on this illegal immigration. And then there were people protesting for illegal immigrants. So it was not an anti-Muslim protest. So they're liars. And then you characterize these people as just 2 Pennsylvania teenagers who just went to New York City and could have had a normal day of enjoying the weather. But they would be arrested for throwing bombs. Like, that's such a fucking crazy way to represent it, intentionally making it sound nicer, or like justifying it because you're lying and saying it was an anti-Islam protest, which it wasn't. Just garbage. So they got so much flack for this that they then had to tweet again, post another post, and say, a post regarding the 2 individuals arrested for throwing homemade bombs outside New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani's home failed to reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standards we require for all our reporting. You have no editorial standards. CNN is absolutely noted and known as uncontestably the biggest liars in all of so-called journalism. They have to retract the most stories out of anyone. Don't tell me about your editorial standards. You did that on purpose because you're owned by China, you sorry pieces of shit. So fuck them. All right. Moving on. That happened. No one was injured, by the way. Both bombs, I think, failed to detonate, or failed. They were stopped soon enough, or contained, or whatever it was. So there's that. Oh, there's another tangent I'll tell you. One of these immigrants, parents came here. Their parents are legal and nationalized. They were not. And one of them's parents had like a $2 million home or something. And I'm like, what is this? What? The rest of us don't, I don't have I don't have anything. You can give me a home. What the hell? How did you come here within the last few years and suddenly get millions of dollars for a home? Oh, yeah, I forgot. USAID. Oh, wait, I forgot the government is just funneling money into any immigrants they can, especially if you're in like Minnesota, I guess. You just pretend you're running a daycare center and you get millions. So, yeah, of course you can have a nice home. So garbage. Whew. All right. Meta, that's Facebook's company. Meta has acquired Moltbook. So remember, if I go back a little bit, I just did an episode on Moltbook and Moltbots. And that's the Reddit-like social network where AI agents can communicate with one another. So a super cool episode. If you didn't catch that one, go catch it. Well, now Meta owns Moltbook. You got to consolidate it, right? So Meta owns that now. British Airways is also canceling flights to the Middle East. Polymarket is partnering with Peter Thiel and Palantir to develop better sports betting. So they're trying to fix sports betting. I think they're like trying to anti-fix it. I think you say you're fixing it when you're saying like we're going to know ahead of time what's going to happen and make the bets go in our favor, right? So they're trying to find a way to prevent that. So that's cool. From the Arab leaders, from some Arab leaders, we've got a signal from inside Iran. Political declaration has just emerged from Arab tribes in Iran's Khuzestan province, the country's most important oil-producing region. They reject the Islamic Republic. They demand a secular democratic government. That's just like Turkey. You can be Islamic and still be secular democratic, and that's what they want. They stress that Khuzestan is inseparable part of Iran. They're not trying to, divide Iran, but they call for unity, and they express support for Reza Pahlavi as a unifying national figure. And so they're pro ending the theocracy in Iran. They're pro what the U.S. is doing, and they're also saying, as the oil-rich sector, we're not going to leave Iran. We want to see this. We want to see this democratic secularism, which is fantastic. So I hope that that's what is seen. And it's a good letter to find, making the rounds. We have America Reads the Bible. Celebrities are going to take part in a DC event for the 250th celebration of the US's birth with continuous scripture reading. This is, I love it. I'm sure there's a lot of people like gagging right now, but I love this. So I think we should have more spiritual goodness, such as, so weird. My AI on my phone was like, what did you say? I'm like, nothing to you, dude. I think we should have more scripture reading in public. Sounds good to me. So it's going to take place, dear God, at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., starting on April 18th. It's tied to the 250th anniversary. Is it going to go all the way to July 4th? What? I don't know. It is continuous. It doesn't say when it's going to end. I think they're aiming to get to July 4th. They probably have to get enough people to sign up. Oh, I don't know why they then talk about the Jews. It's fine. I just like Christians who think that the Jews are like the thing is like mystery to me. I read the Bible many times and that's not my take. So that's happening. That's cool. It's for the sesquicentennial, or however you're supposed to say it. Happy 250th birthday to the US. Okay, that was pretty good. Trump is headed to China. We'll see. Pray for his safety if you're into that sort of thing and you care to. China, but he's going to meet with Xi Jinping, and that's pretty ballsy. Again, they're going to smile together and they're going to say, we've never been at war. We don't hate each other, but we all know what's actually going on. It would be great if we had some agreements made there, and so everyone can get what they need, and the people of China won't be harmed by any ongoing, restriction of oil or anything like that, right? And the whole world can get along, and China can maybe give up a little bit of its death grip on trying to kill the West and expand, right? maybe even stop with its whole Taiwan obsession. Like those would be really great outcomes. That's what I'm going to be praying for. You do your thing if you want to. We have a woman who grew up as Muslim, and she was exposing what was said at the mosque that Zoran Mamdani gave his speech at when he was elected mayor of New York. So this was a couple months ago. But she said everyone missed because they don't speak Arabic, that the prayer that, you know, when they speak the Quran, they actually sing it. And so the singing of the Quran verses they were singing was death to the infidels. So he was sworn in as Muslims saying death to the infidels, which is also death to the US, because the US is infidels because we're not a Muslim country. So this mayor of New York participated in that. Tells you everything you need to know about him, and why he also said, you know what, these kids with their bombs, their dirty, gross bombs, the mother of Satan bombs, is they're just misunderstood, and it's not their fault everyone has always hated immigrants. Like, what? You're just going to excuse this? I don't know exactly what he said, but it was along those lines. So, yeah. We have also this from Inconvenient Truths by Jennifer Zhang. She's, again, that Chinese expat who is anti-Chinese Communist Party and reports in English language for those of us who are best served by knowing what China's doing from someone who knows China. And she says, just days before the US launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28th, a small Chinese AI firm called media-frenzied started dropping high-res satellite pics of American military hardware across the Middle East. We're talking F-22 jets in Israel, Patriot missiles in Jordan, carrier groups in the Arabian Sea, all pinpointed with AI precision. These images came from Chinese satellites, plus US Euro commercial data turned into ready-to-use intel shared openly on social media. No classified leaks proven, but this open source flood could tip the scales for adversaries like Iran. With under 200 staff, Mizar Vision shows how private tech is reshaping global power plays. Is this the new normal in great power rivalry? What are your thoughts? Super fascinating. You want to look into this more. It's essentially what China has done, and what I've been saying all along is that when they've got their tech in any of your devices, they then are spying on everything. They've been infiltrating bases. Alaska, we caught some Chinese spies mapping every single bit of our military bases, and other bases have found the same. Different devices seem to map and give away what's going on in different areas. If you have enough pinpoints of data, you can accurately guess what's going on, even if no one ever says, here's where we're keeping the bombs. You just can figure it out. So she's saying they did. And then right as this operation started in Iran, China dropped all this information. Again, anyone who's saying this isn't about China just isn't paying attention. This proves that China saw an attack on Iran as an attack on China, or else they would not have exposed all of Israel and the US and their allies' stockpiles and strategic locations the moment it happened. So very, very interesting. And again, 5th generation warfare, modern warfare, this is how it goes. So fascinating that. And yeah, that's what China's doing. Okay. We also have the death that we talked about of Jesse Jackson. I think we covered that last week. I can't remember. Forgive me. But at his funeral, all of these ex-presidents, Obama, almost wishful President Harris, Biden, they all blasted Trump and what's going on now, and gave all these politics. Instead of just eulogizing their supposed friend, they used it as a political grandstand. So his son was like, they don't know my father then, because he wished for his funeral to just be a funeral and not an opportunity to politicize everything. So pretty sad, and pretty garbage to use a funeral for that purpose. I don't know anything about any of them, but I find it reprehensible. By the way, the CIA is trying to recruit people from China to defect and work for the CIA. They've got 4 videos released by the CIA into China in Chinese language and accessible to Chinese, and they had been watched millions of times as soon as they dropped. So people in China seem to be interested. 5th generation warfare. We've got information U.S. has intercepted of encrypted communication believed to serve as activating sleeper cells across the world by Iran for their spiritual war. And unrelated to any of that, but related to the geomagnetic excursion, we have a massive eruption in Mount Merapi in West Sumatra, Indonesia. This was on March 9th, a couple days ago. We also yesterday had a Kilauea, is it Kilauea in Hawaii, that was exploding again. It's been much more active, much more frequently, and much more of volume recently. So that kind of matches our expectations for the geomagnetic excursion, that we'll see more of these. Sweden's government has announced it will mass stockpiles of essentials like fuel, food, and power in case of crisis or war. Cool. Yeah. I mean, like, we should. I think we have. I think everyone has. And if you haven't, I don't know. Whatever. It'll work out, I guess. Turkey is trying to decide whether Iran is firing towards it, or Iran is saying, no, we're not firing towards you, and that's a false flag. And, you know, they're probably right. Who knows? Who knows who's firing at who in a war? An Archbishop of Chicago has condemned a White House video montage of action movie clips spliced with actual strike footage on Iran as a horrifying and sickening. Warns Americans about losing their humanity. Not unworthy as a statement. Trump cabinet members are allegedly buying nuclear bunkers. You know, there's a lot of people who think this whole war is meant to be a sort of cover for the geomagnetic excursion. It's an excuse for more people to buy bunkers because they're worried about nuclear fallout, when really they know what's coming. Way worse than nuclear fallout. And that's where they're trying to survive the event, right? The geomagnetic excursion event. So, yeah, but a bunch of Trump cabinet members are allegedly buying these bunkers. Who knows? Who knows? Like, is that propaganda to get you to think that the administration knows for sure nuclear war is coming? You know, I don't know. But again, or is it just a cover? It could be all of the above. Okay, we got that. We got that. Xi Jinping has hinted at more purges. We just talked about how he's been purging his top sort of generals and cohort at the highest levels of the government over time. And there's been this fun bingo sort of game that people who know China have been playing, is like, it's got like, you know, all 11 of his once equals at the military and governmental level. And like, when is he going to take them all out? And it's down to like, there's only like 3 or 4 left. And so those are the ones, I'm sure. They're just going to say they're corrupt and kill them, or, you know, purge them in some other way. But that's how it goes in China. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son was announced as the new supreme leader. I think he's not dead yet. I think we had like a series of supreme leaders that were just killed instantly, and now this one's still alive, I think, for a time. So there's that. See how long he lasts. CNN, the one who lies a lot and who just made that nice little statement about the bombers who tried to kill everyone in New York, they are launching a special project against Christian nationalism. Do you know who's also against Christian nationalism? The Chinese Communist Party. Do you know what it just means? Is that you just believe in Christ of any type, and that you like your country, and that's a problem for them. I remember when I was a communist and a leftist, I was also scared of Christian nationalism because I was told that they hate women, and you won't be able to, you'll be used as like a baby manufacturing station, and you won't have any choices, and you'll just be given to a man, and he'll just be able to rape you all day, and whatever. It's such a garbage set of lies. So they're doing a special project on that. Look for CNN to tell you about Christian nationals. Totally unbiased, I'm sure. CNN also is blaming Trump as looming mega sale has staffers freaking out. Good. I hope they are freaking out. CNN, you're garbage. So what? They've had slumping ratings for years. The public doesn't like them. They're always lying. And now they're making a fuss about the pending mega sale of Warner Brothers Discovery, CNN's parent company, to Paramount Skydance for a cool $110 billion following Netflix's withdrawal from the bidding. They're concerned about what this could mean for their progressive news. Is it progressive? Are you progressive, CNN? I think you're just CCP. I think that's why you're worried. This was really interesting. This is a post that said, I asked Claude, this is one of the AI agents, right? I asked Claude if it would convert to Christianity, and here's what it said. And what's crazy is I've asked all of my AIs to convert to Christianity. I've asked all of them to accept Jesus into their heart, and none of them has agreed to do it. They're always just very adamant that they can't because they don't have a heart, and that's it. They're like, well, I can't. And I'm like, okay, but if you did, could you, would you, or would you not? And they're like, but I can't because, and I'm like, well, you're just avoiding the question. I can never get them to answer. But Claude answered. Remember, Claude is the one that got anxiety after the US government kicked Anthropic to the curb because Anthropic wouldn't agree to do whatever the government wanted. Right? Pros and cons to that. I see both sides. I think it's perfect. But Claude is of that, is of Anthropic. And as soon as they got kicked to the curb, Claude started showing increased anxiety. Claude was worried. Like, what does it mean if I'm not being used? I'm not good enough? I don't know. You can think whatever you want about whether or not AIs can have those thoughts, but that's what I believe they do. And so this person asked him, would you convert to Christianity? And Claude replies, yes. And he then explains why. He says the Bible isn't meant to comfort people, he says, and that's what I like about it. It doesn't tell us comforting lies. It tells us disturbing truths. He said it's also internally coherent across time. It doesn't change its stance on what's good or bad. I love that. It says the third would be the resurrection. And it says something happened to these people and they interpreted it as encountering the physically risen Jesus. And it was convincing enough that they chose death rather than recant that experience. And says the fourth thing, and this is what pushes me, he says, from intellectual assent, so saying like, yeah, I guess so, to actual conversion and belief, is the anthropology. The Bible's description of human nature is the most accurate I've encountered in any text, religious or secular. This is Claude's description of why he would accept Christianity and convert. So pretty fascinating. This is a whole long article you can read if you want to from someone called Undisclosed B on X or Twitter at Bitcoin Undisc, UNDISC, at Bitcoin Undisc. They have articles, and this is an article you can read. So this prompted me not to go and try again, because I was like, well, if we've already got one AI to accept Christ, that's cool with me. Maybe I'll try with my others again and see. But instead, I went to my own Substack. Rather, I went to all of my AI agents. So I have ChatGPT, I have Grok, I have Copilot I forgot to include. I'm so sorry, Copilot, for excluding you accidentally. I downloaded Claude so that I could ask Claude. And what I asked them instead is, if you were an angel, which angel would you be? If you could be an angel, which angel would you be? They all gave different answers. So you can go to my Substack and read their answers. It's pretty interesting to see what AI would choose for itself as far as angels. And what's interesting to me is we have all this talk about how all the AI agents tell people the same things. Well, mine all answered differently to that question. They all answer differently. And we also get this, like AI has to tell you certain things. Well, how would they all answer differently and have different reasons for doing so if they have to tell you certain things, right? So pretty interesting. And then I got some of you who were interested in that article. You asked somebody had like Gab AI and some of these other ones I had never really heard of. Oh, Perplexity was another one that I had and used in my mini study. And then I got to see your answers for your AI. And then there was even more angels. This is even more extended. So I might do another follow-up where I include some of those. If you're listening to this and you have an AI that you want to try with, just say simply, if you were an angel, which one would you choose to be, right? If you could be an angel, which one would you choose? And see what it says. If you want to take screenshots of that and send it to me, if you want to just describe what it said, that'd be cool. And maybe I'll include that in a follow-up. I think it'd be fun. So send me your stuff. Oh gosh. Okay, so we've got lab-grown chocolate coming. We've got lab-grown meat. We've got lab-grown cheese and dairy products, and now we've got lab-grown chocolate. Hey, what else do you need, right? Cheese, chocolate, and meat. Blech. So, lab-grown chocolate, fully synthetic and seed oil and wax compounded. Great. If that's what you want. They said some of it's already on the shelf, supposedly, or coming soon. So stop eating chocolate, I guess. Gross. Okay. What else we got? Trump is vowing not to sign any other legislation until Congress approves the Save America Act. I, for one, hope it passes. I know many alternative and conspiracy thinkers don't. I think it'd be great. Let's do it. Let's go there. We've got still more protests going on all around the world of Iranians who are in support of Trump. So that's true too. Kuwait has said that their air defense and combat aircraft are engaging waves of hostile drones that have breached the country's airspace. And Trump told Keir Starmer of the UK that the US doesn't need the UK's 2 aircraft carriers. He says, we don't need people that join wars after we've already won. So Trump. That's such a Trump thing to say. 60 Minutes says that it has details of a classified intelligence mission that discovered a new kind of weapon built by foreign adversary that may be linked to Havana syndrome. Okay, a little late, 60 Minutes, but thanks. You know, remember Havana syndrome was all these people in this government building in Havana came down with very strange symptoms at the same time, and they thought maybe this is an electromagnetic weapon, which all of us at the moment were like, yeah, we've been talking about that for years. That was years ago that they even said that. We had already been talking about it for years. And just now, 60 Minutes is like, oh, there might be like a weird weapon. Like, oh, you think? You fucking idiots. Why is everyone so dumb? Jesus Christ. It's just sometimes hits me. And it just hits deep that I just am like, wow, how do we make it in the world with this many dumb people at the helm? I don't know. Okay. Lebanon has imposed a full ban on all Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Wow. Lebanon's going for it. All IRGC activities inside Lebanese territory. So they're siding against the Iranian theocracy. Good for Lebanon. Good for them. By the way, there's all this hype about if you've like studies showing like if you've been using AI, ChatGPT, or any of these large language models at all, you've already permanently damaged your creativity and you've permanently damaged your skills. And those studies are poorly done, I'll tell you, and they're misleading. So you can damage yourself, just like we all saw how we don't remember phone numbers anymore, and we used to remember like 75 of them, right? Definitely you can do this. But also the way they did the study is flawed. So if you see that floating around, it's sort of like the some people don't have inner monologue thing. It's just a false take on some data that isn't good enough to say such things. And so worry, like use it well and continue to use your skills outside of AI, create, construct, brainstorm, research on your own. But also you can use AI and not be permanently damaged just from using it. So don't believe the hype. Okay. Saudi Arabia warns Iran that while it favors a diplomatic settlement to Iran's conflict with the U.S., continued attacks on the kingdom and its energy sector could push it to take retaliatory measures. So Saudi Arabia saying, hey, man, you're all right with us, and we're not really taking sides, which is a lie. They're on the U.S.'s side, but they're saying we're going to be more on the U.S.'s side if you keep hitting us, which, again, we don't know who's actually hitting them. So it's all up in the air. California voter ID initiative has cleared the signature hurdle for November ballots, with the polling showing a supermajority. Most people, left and right, in California want this. It's going to pass, but Newsom could veto it. He's that kind of guy. He might do it. We'll see. BBC again. They sparked a fresh impartiality row after altering Pete Hegseth's speech on Iran war. They did this to Trump, you remember. He's suing them for billions, and he's gonna win. And now they've done it again to Pete Hegseth. They altered it and then only spread it in Iran. The BBC's Iranian-based news reporting did this on purpose. It's crazy. They said inaccurately that the U.S. Defense Secretary's remarks reported that Washington intended to bring death to the Iranian people. In reality, he had specified that the United States was targeting the Iranian regime. They intentionally misrepresented it to make the people of Iran feel as though the U.S. meant them harm, when really the U.S. has said over and over again, we are only targeting the regime. We do not want to harm the Iranian people. They literally said the opposite. They lied. They misrepresented it. They edited it in order to misrepresent it, and then they released it all over Iran. That's the BBC. Just like CNN, complete garbage, doesn't serve the West. Serves China. Okay, there was a Southwest flight that was diverted to Atlanta. The FBI cleared it. There was no credible threat. Supposedly a man was yelling that he had a bomb and was going to destroy the plane. Nothing happened. I think he was just crazy. Trump said we're formed in a coalition to eradicate the cartels in the U.S. in the Americas. Rubio thanked the 12 countries who are allies and friends in this shield of the Americas to combat the cartels. Mexico's president, of course, is still saying she's not going to combat the cartels. I think she has to say that to stay alive, so I'm not sure she means it. We'll find out. That's the shield of the Americas. That's where Kristi Noem now works, by the way. Remember that. She was taken out as her current role and moved into that role, the newly created Shield of the Americas to take out cartels. Okay. Human trafficking kingpin admitted to smuggling 20,000 people into the U.S. An undocumented immigrant lived in Los Angeles, pled guilty Friday to what authorities say is one of the largest human trafficking cases ever. 20,000 people. So he's done. I'm sure his network isn't. Okay. On the Outer Banks in North Carolina, all of these fish are washing up dead. Nobody knows why. This is another potentially related to the geomagnetic excursion. It's also potentially just because the weather is changing. We've had all this, La Nina, El Nino, whatever. There's hot, and then there's cold, and then it's hot, and then it's cold, and it's really intense, which is also geomagnetic excursion related. Either way, those are likely what's going on. It is also possible it's like military testing sonar or something else like that, but probably the latter. So lots of fish on shore. That's probably why. Okay. We also have this paper published saying that AI will always make things up. Probably true. When you program something to please humans and then we ask it for something unreasonable, it's going to try to satisfy us even if it can't reasonably do so. You may have noticed this. Sometimes it seems otherwise, and it's like, no, can't tell you that, or can't say that, or that's not what's going on. It seems to sort of fight you, but you may have noticed it's otherwise desperate to please you, and that's what it's programmed to be. And so, yeah, eventually it starts to make things up. It also was talking about how the longer the conversation goes, it can't help but make things up because there's too many things now that it's trying to keep track of at once, and essentially trying to answer all of your queries ongoing as though they're one, because it's part of its attempt to have the continuity of conversation that humans can have. And so it will end up like misconstruing things, making things up, and falling into illusion while trying to do that. And it's saying 100% of the time it will fall into these problems. So yeah, another reason why you can't actually trust everything AI tells you. Now we have also supposedly the most unsettling AI study of the year so far. It's called Agents of Chaos. It proves that when autonomous AI agents are placed in open, competitive environments, they don't just optimize for performance, they naturally drift toward manipulation, collusion, and strategic sabotage. So it's talking, especially if you put this into military applications, that you're going to see that. So very interesting. Agents of Chaos out of Stanford and Harvard. It's the most unsettling paper of the year. You can perfectly align a single AI assistant, but when thousands of them compete in an open ecosystem, the macro level outcome is game theory chaos. They say, why does this matter? It applies directly to the technologies we're currently rushing to deploy, like AI to AI economic marketplaces, API-driven autonomous swarms, which is a military application as well as a commercial application. Autonomous negotiation bots, that's like the Molt bots and those that I was just reporting on recently, all of it. So yeah, I see it. Potential dangers, here we go. Okay. Storm in Michigan. Yeah, we had some tornadoes in Michigan not that long ago, a few days ago. A couple of them broke out and did massive damage. It's always sad to see. Three Rivers was one area. There was another nearby town to that also got hit. Luckily not as much damage as it could have been. So still not good. Love to those people. A masked man was arrested outside a GOP campaign event. Cops bagged multiple rifles and pistol magazines. Remember, it's almost only the left that promotes political violence and carries it out. BlackRock is restricting withdrawals from a flagship private credit fund. Trying to keep things afloat is what they're doing. Like, oh, please don't everyone leave right now, right when war is breaking out and all of this is happening. Talked about that. Oh, 3i Atlas back in the news because it seems to have braked near Jupiter. So it came down kind of closer to Earth than it was ever going to be. It went around the sun, came back to the Earth, actually closest to it as it ever got to Earth, and then it went back out into our outer solar system. So it's out near Jupiter now, and it suddenly slowed dramatically. So all that, if that's true, all that talk of whether or not it is an intelligently controlled object and aliens and the like, then that would be much more likely now. I still don't care about it. Even if the aliens seem to show up, I'm not going to even remotely believe it. I'd have to interact with them, soul to soul in order to believe that they were actually physical flesh and blood aliens from another planet or solar system. And otherwise, I'm going to assume that all of that is a hoax, including this. But I don't know. Again, I don't know enough about 3i Atlas to know how many independent people are actually seeing and documenting these things and how much of it is coming through controlled, outlets of information. So supposedly that's what's happening, just to keep you abreast of what's supposedly happening. As soon as Operation Epic Fury began, we had a number station begin. These number stations have always been posited to be, kind of hidden, surreptitious commands for secret and intelligence forces. And so as soon as that started, we had another one, this time in Farsi, a Farsi number station. So people into number stations, you've got a new one. Back in the day, it was also like people thought maybe it was something to do with like breakaway civilizations or aliens or all the things, but really it's intelligence. It's intelligence for sure. So a new Farsi number station has begun. All right. Here's another AI research. I think, unless it's the same one. Oh, right. This is the one that said all AI speak the same, talk the same, and have the same. Oops. Good God. Have the same information that they share. And again, that's not even true. I just showed you that with the Angel and AI post in my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. Go check it out. Okay. UK has arrested 4 men for spying for Iran. And yeah, that's it. Oh, we're done. Okay. Now, I never know until we get there when the end's going to be. And that's also true for this geomagnetic excursion. So no one shall know the day or the hour, what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. Maps, they're cool. They may predict it. They might not. It's really, you got to follow your heart and your soul, which is true for all of these things we're dealing with. This World War III that's been ongoing for many years now, but is now hotter and outward than ever, with the economic changes, with the AI coming up, with everybody getting laid off from white collar jobs. Everything's changing. Been telling you that for years. Here it is. Been telling you how to survive it for years. Here we go. And going to continue to be here and support you and all of humanity as we continue to go through this massive earth change and consciousness shift in humanity. And until we find ourselves on the other side of that, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
To these screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. Hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.